It all started on a cool autumn afternoon when 10-year-old Emma was digging in her backyard, pretending to search for treasure. Her shovel struck something solid, and as she knelt down to brush away the dirt, she uncovered a small weathered box. Inside was an antique doll, its pale face cracked in a few places, but its glassy blue eyes and delicate lace dress looked surprisingly well preserved. Emma felt an odd charm in its worn, fragile appearance, and immediately felt a kinship with the doll. "Let's call you Clara," she whispered, cradling it in her arms as she brought it inside. She placed Clara on her dresser, propped up so the doll's glassy gaze overlooked her bed. That night, Emma drifted off to sleep, her new doll watching over her from the shadows. But when she woke up the next morning, Clara was no longer on the dresser. Instead, she was sitting on Emma's bedside table, her blank eyes staring directly at her. Emma brushed it off as her own forgetfulness, figuring she must have moved the doll and simply forgotten. She put Clara back on the dresser and went about her day. The next morning, however, Clara had moved again. This time she was on the floor near the bedroom door, positioned as if she had been walking toward the hallway. Emma's unease grew as she inspected the doll. Her once expressionless face now seemed to bear the faintest hint of a smile, a small, unnerving smirk that Emma hadn't noticed before. She tried to dismiss it as a trick of the light, but a chill ran down her spine as she moved Clara back to the dresser. Days passed, and each morning Emma found Clara in a new place, sitting in the bathroom, perched on the edge of the staircase, and once even by the front door, as if she were trying to leave. Clara's expression, too, seemed to change slightly each day. Her smile widened, her glass eyes sparkled with a hint of mischief, and her head tilted ever so slightly, watching Emma in a way that felt unsettlingly real. One night, as Emma lay in bed, trying to ignore her rising fear, she heard soft footsteps echoing down the hall. The sound grew louder, inching closer to her door, accompanied by a faint, almost inaudible whisper. "Emma May?" Her heart raced, her hands clenching the bedsheets as she forced herself to stay still. She told herself it was a dream, that the footsteps were just the creaks of an old house. But then she heard it again, a soft, airy voice calling her name. Trembling, she pulled the blanket over her head, closing her eyes tightly, and eventually drifted into an uneasy sleep. In the morning, she discovered Clara sitting on the floor beside her bed, that disturbing little smile now unmistakably wide, her hands folded delicately in her lap, as if she'd been waiting for Emma to wake up. Emma couldn't shake the feeling that the doll's glass eyes were following her every move. By now, Emma was too scared to keep the doll in her room. She picked Clara up, avoiding those haunting eyes, and hurried out to the backyard. She dug a hole beneath the same spot where she'd found her, and buried Clara back in the earth, pressing the soil down tightly. Satisfied, she walked back inside, trying to convince herself that it was over. That night she slept soundly, relieved to be free of the doll's silent presence. But the next morning, when she woke up, she froze. Clara was sitting on her dresser, dirt clinging to her dress, her porcelain face smeared with bits of soil. Her smile had grown even wider, her eyes now glinting with something dark, something that felt almost alive. Emma screamed, running to her parents' room. She tried to explain, to tell them about the doll, but they dismissed it as a nightmare, a trick of her imagination. Her mother went to her room, saw Clara, and sighed. "It's just an old doll, honey," she said, shaking her head as she placed it back on the dresser. That night, Emma locked Clara in her closet, piling boxes in front of the door. She barely slept, her ears straining for any sound. And then, around midnight, she heard it again, the soft whisper, this time right outside her closet door. "May, I'm lonely, let me out." Her heart raced as the voice grew louder, the knob of the closet door rattling as if someone or something was trying to get out. Terrified, Emma kept her eyes squeezed shut until the sound faded and silence returned. When morning came, Emma hesitantly opened her closet. There was Clara, right on top of the boxes, her hands pressed against the door as if she'd been pushing her way out. The smile on her face was wide, almost mocking, and her glassy eyes were fixated on Emma, seeming to sparkle with amusement. Emma couldn't take it anymore. That evening she threw Clara into the garbage bin at the end of their street, making sure the lid was securely closed. She watched as the garbage truck rolled through the neighborhood, relieved as it carried Clara away. But that night, as she lay in bed, Emma heard the unmistakable sound of tiny footsteps outside her door, louder than ever. A chilling voice, almost joyful, drifted into the room. "May, you can't get rid of me that easily." Emma pulled the covers over her head, heart pounding as she lay paralyzed with fear. She listened to the footsteps as they moved closer, pausing just outside her bedroom. She held her breath, hoping it was just a dream, until she heard her door slowly creak open. The next morning, Emma's parents found her bed empty, the sheets crumpled and cold. On her dresser sat Clara, her expression peaceful, her hands folded in her lap as if she'd finally found what she was looking for. Emma was never seen again, but sometimes on quiet nights, her parents swear they hear the soft sound of footsteps in the hallway, followed by a faint whisper, "May."